Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am your teacher, Simi Namer. I hope that you and your family are safe and well. I can honestly say that I have never experienced an event with such a drastic impact on how we live and work nowadays. We must do the right things and be prepared to take steps beyond what we are typically required to do. In the current situation, it is vital to stay digitally connected. So let's have this connection again and let's start our today's lecture. This is my lecture number 6 for grade 1 and today we have a history class. So today we are going to start a new chapter, chapter number 12, which is how far did Pakistan achieve stability following the death of Jinnah. In the previous chapter, we learned about so many problems that Pakistan faced soon after its partition. One of the problems was that the founder or the creator of Pakistan, the Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, left us soon after, like we can say, just only after 1 year of its establishment. So it was really hard for Pakistan to be stable. Only after 3 days of the death of the Quaid, on 14 September 1948, Khwaja Nazimuddin became the new Governor General of Pakistan. As you know, the first Governor General of Pakistan was Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. So Khwaja Nazimuddin became the second Governor General after his death. Nazimuddin was leader of the Muslim League at the time and was also the Chief Minister of East Pakistan. He was respected as an honest and talented politician. Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan remained in office. Khwaja Nazimuddin quickly realized that Liaquat Ali Khan had the confidence of the government, administrators, and people of Pakistan. People looked up to him because he was a close associate and most trusted companion of Quaid-e-Azam. Nazimuddin therefore stood back and allowed Liaquat Ali Khan to run the country. The role of Governor General became less important than that of Prime Minister. One of the first tasks which Liaquat Ali Khan had to address was establishing a constitution which would satisfy the different groups within Pakistan. After independence in 1947, Pakistan was ruled under the Indian Independence Act, which was an amended version of the Government of India Act, because there was no personal, or we can say separate constitution framed for Pakistan. So as you know that since 1857 the subcontinent had been completely under the control of the British Crown, and the last act that they passed was in 1935, which was the constitution they framed to how to run India. So Pakistan was there to follow the same constitution until they make their own. So that was till then they were following the Indian Independence Act, which was amended version of Government of India Act 1935. So for making constitution, the modified Government of India Act 1935 became the interim constitution of Pakistan in 1947. Interim means that temporary constitution of Pakistan in 1947, and the Constituent Assembly was given the task of framing the constitution. So that was the Constituent Assembly. That was a group of people who were given the task to frame the new laws of the country. Pakistan's first Constituent Assembly came into being on July 26, 1947, and its inaugural session was held on August 10, 1947. The Constituent Assembly means like the assembly was created. The members of the assembly were created because they had the right to design or to frame the constitution, the laws of the country. In its inaugural session means in its opening session, in its starting session that was held on August 10th, 1947. On March 12, 1949, the Constituent Assembly adopted the objective resolution enumerating the ideas on which the future constitution had to be formulated. Now here, what was the objective resolution? Objective resolution was like it was a drafted document which was like for the principles that we have to show what will be the laws of the country, what will be the constitutions of the country. So that was in a written form, and in the written form all the principles were there, all the documents were there. The written document was known as the objective resolution. So the Constitution Assembly was about to adopt the objective resolution enumerating the ideas on which the future constitution had to be formulated. Enumerating means mentioning the ideas, that what the ideas should be to make the to design the future constitution. And the assembly also appointed on the same date um, basic principle committee to work out the principles on which the constitution was to be drafted. Now, the basic principle committee was a group of people, was a group of committee that was suggested by the assembly member, that was suggested by the assembly, constituent assembly. They suggested a basic principle committee. That committee was a group of people who was given the task to design the objective resolution for the constitution. Let me tell you again about the objective resolution. First, I've told you about the constituent assembly. The Constituent Assembly were like the members of the assembly, the elected members of the assembly. First, we are making the assembly. After the election, we are making assembly. Then the objective resolution was adopted by the Constituent Assembly of Pakistan on March 12, 1949. So that was the uh, like the findings of the constituent assemblies were contained in a document. The document was called the objective resolution. Then let me explain the basic principle committee. Like the first task was given to the constituent assembly, the members of the assembly or the elected members of the assembly. The constituent assembly had set up a basic principle committee. So they set another committee to decide the principles on which the new constitution should be based. So the Constituent Assembly set up a new committee which was called the Basic Principle Committee, and the role of Principle Committee was to design the principles on which the constitution should be based. So the members of the Basic Principle Committee were like about 24-25 members, about a third of the assembly, and its findings were contained in a document called the Objective Resolution. So the Objective Resolution was a resolution adopted on March 12, 1949 by the Constituent Assembly of Pakistan, and the resolution proposed by the Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan proclaimed that the future constitution of Pakistan would not be modeled entirely on a European pattern, but on the ideology and democratic faith of Islam. So the objective resolution declared that the constitution should observe the principles of democracy, freedom, equality, tolerance, and social justice as laid down by Islam. I'm reading this from your book on page number 121. The constitution should observe the principles of democracy. You know what is democracy? Democracy is the right of vote, or the right to choose the government of the country. This is the public right. And the freedom is the liberty, equality, equal rights, tolerance, and social justice as laid down by Islam, as Islam teaches us. Okay, the second one here is Muslims would be able to lead their lives according to Islamic principles. So this is that should be the part of constitution, that Muslim would be able to lead their lives according to Islamic principles. So we would have complete Islamic freedom, complete liberty of Islamic practices. Other religious groups should be able to practice their religion freely. So, we'll give the freedom or liberty to other religious or non Muslim groups to practice their own um, religious practices. So the same point is again here Muslims shall be enabled to order their lives in the individual and collective spheres in accordance with the teachings of Islam as set out in the Quran and Sunnah. As I said there, they will lead their lives according to Islamic principles. Now, the fourth point in your book is the minorities and the poor would be legally protected from the social injustice. And here we have like adequate provision shall be made for the minorities to freely profess and practice their religions and develop their cultures. Pakistan shall be a federation. And the second last point is all fundamental human rights should be guaranteed. There are many fundamental rights of human. I'll tell you later. And the legal system should be independent of government. Here, the judiciary shall be independent. The legal system is the judiciary of Pakistan, and this is that should be independent of the government. So they can even if they want to dismiss any of the government person, if they want to take action against any of the corrupt corrupt authority, corrupt government, so they can do. The objective resolution contains several references to Islam as it tried to counter criticism from the ulama that the new government had not made Pakistan a proper Islamic state with the constitution based on the Shariat. But still, it was heavily criticized by many people. One of the criticism was the Constituent Assembly for lavishing attention on this piece of rhetoric which was of no practical benefit to anyone. The piece of rhetoric means like rhetoric is I think it's a kind of we can say a language or the kind of act that is used to inform or you can say to persuade other to motivate audience. When we are trying to get the attention of the audience, we are using this piece of rhetoric. So that was a criticism uh, by Ayaz Amir, and even the Maulana Madudi was disappointed with the fact that it did not produce any positive results. According to him, it was such a rain which was neither preceded by a gathering of clouds nor was it followed by a vegetation. So it means that it was useless. The objective resolution was heavily criticized, although the Basic Principle Committee was consist of 24 members was made to work for the Constitution and the various subcommittees on federal and provincial duties, franchise, judiciary and fundamental rights started working. Board of Talimat Islamia was also set to look for advice on the religious matters. The drafted constitution was presented to the Assembly by the Basic Principle Committee on 28 September 1950. The committee recommended the legislature system, which was the bicameral legislature system. And bicameral means the two assemblies. So the uh, two assemblies will decide the laws of the country. And then uh, they said that the president was to be elected by the joint session of the two houses. The two houses means the upper house and the lower house. So they said that equal representation of the units, like 100 members in the upper house, and for lower house, it's like house of people on the basis of population. That was 400 members. Both the upper house and the lower house will enjoy equal power. So both the houses of the assembly will have equal number of powers. So it was stated by the committee that the head of the state, elected by joint session, the upper and lower house, would only be for 5 years. So there will be a re-election after every 5 years in the country. Then president and had power of emergency proclamation and the appointment and other powers, like he can appoint someone in any of the department. And then he was not responsible to give answer to anyone. He can be a Muslim or a non-Muslim. He would be assisted by the prime ministers and the cabinet, and the parliament can charge him by two-thirds of majority. So if the parliament, the members of the parliament want to charge him against or for him, so they have to show two-thirds of the majority votes. And then he was given the power to break the constitution anytime. Cabinet was responsible to both the houses. So, cabinet is a body of high-ranking state officials that is consisting of the top leaders of the executive branches, or we can say members of the cabinets are usually called the cabinet ministers. So, they were responsible to both the houses, and as I told you earlier, Urdu will be the national language. So this report was heavily criticized again, and the religious groups objects that the report contained nothing about the Islamization. After severe criticism, the Basic Principle Committee drafted their second draft, and they gave the following points. As many of the ulama or the religious leaders complained about the first draft that it was not pure Islamic, so they changed their some of the points. Like they said, head of the state would be Muslim. In the previous, they said Muslim or non-Muslim. In this draft, they said head of the state would be Muslim and no change in powers. Equal representation to east and west wings, again they gave equal representation, although it was criticized by the east Pakistan that their population is more larger than west Pakistan, so they asked for the increase in the number. But again, same number of representation was given to east and Pakistan in the upper house and in the lower house, 60 each in upper house, 200 each in the lower house. Then more powers were given to the lower house. Representation was given equal to upper and lower house, but powers were in the previous draft, the powers were equal. In this draft, the powers are not equal. To the lower house, they gave more powers. Cabinet was made responsible to lower house. It was promised that lawmaking would be in accordance with Islam and no law would be made in disobedience of the Islamic principles. An advisory board of five Islamic scholars was founded. So, the advisory board of government, which give their advices in different matters of the government. So, that was made on five Islamic scholars to satisfy the ulama. So, they gave these 3 points that there would be in all the lawmaking would be in accordance with Islam, and there no law would be made in disobedience of Islamic principle. An advisory board of five Islamic scholars was founded, but they remained quiet on the national language again. Like the first report, this was also criticized, but this time criticism arose from Punjab, which considered the federal formula to be defective. They demanded equal representation for various units in lower house and equal power for both houses. And the Punjab members in the Basic Principle Committee and the federal cabinet disliked the formula because they felt East Pakistan would easily dominate West Pakistan, which had been divided into 9 units. The political crisis removed Prime Minister Nazimuddin on October 7 1953, and the attention unfocused from the main issue. During the time of Khwaja Nazimuddin, his governorship, several other important measures were also taken. One of that was the Public and Representative Officers Disqualification Act, which was called as PRODA. And the PRODA prescribed 15 years exclusion from public office for those found guilty of the corruption, and about 3,000 officials were dismissed and many others were reduced in rank as a result of these measures. Let me read from your book also. The act showed that Pakistan had yet to become the free democratic country that the Qaid had envisioned. It was subtitled An Act for the Debarring from the Public Office for a Suitable Period of Person Judicially Found Guilty or Misconduct in any public office or any representative capacity in any matter therein. So means anyone who is found guilty in any department of the government was to be disqualified. Debarring means disqualifying. By this act, complaints could be made to the Governor General or provincial governors who could order an inquiry by judges. Anyone found guilty under Proda was debarred. Debarred means to removed from office. And the law was designed to eliminate corruption. But in reality, it allowed the ruling elite to remove those who it did not approve of. So this is the history of Pakistan. There, even the officials are corrupt here. They're using any of their law, any of the law, any of the policy for their own wish. So the further criticism I would like to explain from your book, and like the East Pakistan had a much larger population than West Pakistan and resented the idea of equal representation in the National Assembly. The East Pakistanis also resented having to accept Urdu as the official language at the expense of Bengali because there are 2 points. The first point, East Pakistan objected that uh, they had larger population than Pakistan, the West Pakistan. So they were asking for extra representation in the assembly, although they have given this equal number of seats in the upper house as the same as the West Pakistan. So that was their first complaint. The second complaint was why Urdu was selected as the official language. Uh, 56% of the population of Pakistan was spoken Bengali. And you know, Urdu was the language of only 6% of people. So, why they have chosen Urdu as the official language? That was the complaint, that was the criticism from the East Bengal. Second point is like provincial politicians objected to the power being given to the head of the state and to the federal government. The provincial politicians objected that to the power being given, that the provincial power is even given to the head of the state and to the federal government, that it should be in the hand of the provincial government only. And the third one is religious groups complained that the constitution was not sufficiently Islamic. In his reign, another problem was the refugees problem, which was dealt with great concern, and that was dealt with the Liaquat Nehru Pact, which was signed between the two prime ministers of countries, India and Pakistan. In August 1947, the Qaid had called the refugee problem in Pakistan a grave emergency because it was a huge problem. Like many thousands of people were moving from one side to another, and had set the Central Refugee Council to deal with it. Liaquat Ali Khan met with the Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and signed the Liaquat Nehru Pact. It was agreed that each government was responsible for the safety of minority groups within its borders, and free passage of refugees across the border was restricted, and a visa system for refugees was introduced. So that was the first time that visa system was introduced on the borderline, that no one was allowed to move freely from one country to another. In his reign, another problem was the accession of the Hyderabad in Kashmir. On 17 September 1948, while Pakistan was still coming to terms with the death of the Qaid, India invaded Hyderabad. That was a great problem for Pakistan. And on 5th January 1948, the United Nations organization organized a ceasefire between the India and Pakistan in Kashmir. Ceasefire means to stop the war between the India and Pakistan in Kashmir, and however there was no agreement over the future of Kashmir, so tensions looked like in time to come. Another serious problem was arose from some of the army leaders, uh, and that was in a shape of Rawalpindi conspiracy case. In January 1951, um, the British commander-in-chief of the Pakistan Army was replaced by General Ayub Khan. That was first time because at the time of partition, Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah hired some of the British officials for our army. So it was the first time that the British commander was replaced with General Ayub Khan, a Pakistani. And since partition, many army officers had complained about the presence of the British in the senior positions. By 1951, most army officers were Pakistani. Despite this, some army officers were unhappy with the government and began to plan a coup to take over the government. Coup means to overthrow the government. In March 1951, this Rawalpindi conspiracy was discovered by Ayub Khan. You know what is conspiracy? Conspiracy means something, a secret type of plan, a harmful plan, we can say, or a sazish. So that was discovered by the army chief Ayub Khan, and the conspirators were arrested. They were tried and imprisoned. Amongst them was the Major General Akbar Khan, Chief of General Staff, and 14 other officials. Liaquat Ali Khan had survived this first coup, this first plan, this first secret plan of overthrow, but this success was to be short lived. He was shot dead by an assassin on the 16 October 1951. Assassin means the murderer who killed him. And while addressing a public meeting in the Rawalpindi, he had worked tirelessly for the country and was a popular leader. The government gave him the title of Shahid-e-Millat, a martyr for the cause of the nation. So that was all about today's lecture. I think that's enough for today's lecture. Let me give you an assignment here. And the assignment is one question for 4 marks and the other one is for 10 marks. For 4 marks, I'm giving you what was the Rawalpindi conspiracy. And the second one is, was Proda a good or bad law for Pakistan? Explain your answer. Please do both the questions in your notebook neatly and draw margin line. Must write today's day and date. Thank you so much for watching this video. We'll meet again in another video with another lecture. Um, Stay home, stay safe, stay healthy, stay blessed. Thank you. Bye.